legislature by the wisdom of the DOJ, which you cannot do in legislation. An instance precisely where an IRR was struck down because it modified and in fact expand the law is, remember that 13th month pay in our labor code? There was an attempt by the Department of Labor to put up an implementing rules and regulations defining anew the concept of 13th month pay. In the case of China Bank, the Supreme Court said, no, you cannot put in the ARR something which is not found in the law. So, how I wish the clarificatory explanations of U6 was found in the law itself, or in the list, at least those clarifications were found in the deliberations of the law, so that at least if the law is vague, we can have resort to interpreting the law on the basis of the interpellations in discussions of the law in Congress, not in the IRR. Because the IRR in the law are meant to be implemented not only by the present government, it is to be implemented by future governments. And if Mr. C is no longer around, what guarantee is there for us to say that a very serious prosecutor would say that IRR is a restriction of the law which is broad, and therefore that IRR does not bind me? These are my thoughts on the law.
I will put a hopeful voice. Nakabahan ako sa'yo. First, I think also for the CHR, I think something that has to be considered once the IRR is being drafted is what is our take on being anonymous. I know that we always want libel to be decriminalized because we want to be at par, or we want to be fair and be at par with other countries. But we also know that libel online has been a great field for those who would like to take on anonymous identities and really struck down on persons online, whether there was truth or not to what is being claimed. But that is a problem, and I think the cybercrime law has an opportunity to address that issue, and I think we have to take a clear stand on that. Is libel decriminalized for known identities, or are you going to apply the same for anonymous identities? Like, for instance, I always mention about this site that was put up that lists men with AIDS, and it was built by someone with an anonymous identity. It violated their human rights, but this person who put up the site were saying that people should know that they have AIDS because they can harm people. So I want to, maybe later on, once we start working on the IRR, I want to understand what's your take on anonymity. And on application to other laws on IRR, the way I understand, Attorney C explained it earlier on how the IRR will be drafted, is that it will take into conjunction all other legislation where cybersex and pornography were tackled. Therefore, in the IRR, the way that will be explained is that not by this section alone, but it will also take into consideration other laws and how they will be handled together. We experienced the same predicament with the e-commerce law, because the e-commerce law provided electronic document recognition for all the other laws. So that is why when they were trying to amend the IP code to specifically mention electronic counterparts, what was being suggested then was to issue another IRR on how that law can be applied in conjunction with the e-commerce law, so that to define, to further clarify it. So I guess that's why I'm saying I'm hopeful that in the attempt to clarify, not just to only look at the law by itself, but how the law can be applied with other laws to ensure that it will not conflict with other laws, but more of supplementing the other laws, if that will be indeed possible. And I guess by the time we start doing the bakbakan on the IRR, we're going to see all of that. So I hope we give it a chance.
Okay.
Yeah. Basically, I'm from the outsourcing industry, and I would like to state that to a greater percentage, and we're very thankful that these laws have been passed. As all of us, we have problems in certain portions to that law, specifically on libel and how that affects people using your premises and making you liable for whatever your subordinate or your employee is doing at a higher level. Now, we were told that this would be handled in the IRRs. And from what has been said again right now, I think guidelines will be the basis by which we really have to monitor and make sure that the answers to this cover all of us. Because as employers, we definitely cannot monitor the hundreds of employees that work for us. And we don't want to find the ability for somebody to come in for whatever reason, take on the employee and shut down the facility for things like that. So those are the things we're really hoping get answered in the IRRs.
I just wanted to issue a rejoinder to ASEC-C's earlier statement regarding implementation of the law. I'm wearing my hat as a member of the Board of Trustees of the Asian Institute of Journalism and Communication, whereby we are very much in the forefront of advocacy against the culture of impunity, killing of journalists, and all this sort of thing. So I think it's really very important that whatever law we will be crafted, becomes a really good law. On the other hand, it needs to have the implementation done properly, including the participation of all of you, as ASEC mentioned, so that the culture of impunity can be somehow diminished. People will not take the law into their own hands anymore because they feel that their issues will not be addressed properly. So I think that's a major issue that is also related somehow to what we've been discussing here.
Thank you, Commissioner Tim. Any further questions from the audience? Okay, we do have one question again on, yes, Attorney Salamio.
This is very critical. The most serious and hotly debated issue in the cybercrime law is the provision on libel. And the section immediately after that provision, which speaks of double jeopardy, meaning that a prosecution under the cyber crime prevention law is without prejudice to a prosecution under the revised penal code. I have heard some legislators say, and this does not include my dear friend Friede, that the reason why electronic or cyber libel is made part of this law is because allegedly it is not covered by Article 355 of the revised penal code. My fear is it is in fact covered. Therefore, if in fact cyber or electronic libel is already covered by the revised penal code, and you are repeating that provision in the cybercrime prevention law, you may be hit by two violations for one in the same offense. Let me explain, because it may help our legislators in addressing this cyber libel. Look at the enumerations in Republic Act, in the revised penal code. It speaks of libel through writings, through print, through radio, through cinematographic exhibition. This, and it is followed by the word "and similar means," which according to Mr. C means the principle of his tem generis, means that several others, similar others, would be others of the same nature as those enumerated. Now, when you talk of writing or print, the law does not qualify. That is why electronic writing or electronic print is already part of that revised penal code. Also, you look at the word radio. In an old case decided by the Supreme Court involving, I think, PT&T or PLDT, the Supreme Court said that radio is transmission via airwave or wireless communication. Look at your cell phone. Look at your internet. Some of them are wireless. Therefore, the word radio already contemplates even our cell phone, which is part of the so-called computer apparata as defined in the law. Now look again at the word cinematographic exhibition. The images that you see in your cell phone, these are not the printed words, or the images that we see in the internet. They are in fact a species of mass broadcasts. You know, in our constitutional law, we have two concepts of mass media: the print media, which is the newspaper, and you have the broadcast media, which is the radio, which is the television, the cable TV. When you say cinematographic exhibition, this is mass media, this is broadcast mass media. And therefore, when you say and other similar means, internet is already contemplated by that, because internet and cinematography